So how do you feel the leader in you? It's more than just feeling. How do you articulate to others that you are a leader? Because others should feel the leader in you as well. We need to be a real leader. So it all starts with you. You have to do something about yourself. Only then the leader in you comes out. So let's have a look at what we need to do to get that out. So how many of you in this room, I know there is a huge age group here, but how many of you in this room think you are a leader? Show of hands. How many of you think you are a leader? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pick one of you and to come to the front of the stage and to tell everyone why you are a leader. Who wants to do that? No, I was just joking. Now that's what this is all about, you know. In everyone, there is a leader. Definitely there is. You know, for the 3-year-old who sits in your car and says, let's go through the countryside today, rather than the motorway, there is leadership. They have made an impact. They have made you make a decision, which means that there is leadership in there. But it's about you being able to articulate it to others, to say how you have made an impact and who is the leader in you. So I did send out a survey. I don't know how many of you had a chance to look at it. It was a questionnaire about what you think about yourself, the things that has influenced you, both people and situations and all that. There is a reason why I sent it out. I'm not going to go through what everyone filled in. There was about 7 or 8 responses, I think, which was very good. I went through them, but that's not the topic for discussion today. So when I was in college, when I was doing engineering, there was an incident that happened in the hostel. 20-year-olds, you know what they do, boys, 100 of them when they get together. It's not always what you want to see. So somebody threw fireworks at the warden's door. That's what happened. Obviously that became a huge problem there. People from all over the world came around to take action, but nobody would admit who did it. I don't know who did it. But obviously there was friction that was going on for a while. And that's what resulted in that happening. The managers of the hostel came around, they summoned all of them. The first thing that they did is, they just took action on 5 of the kids. 5 of these 20-year-olds. With no idea who did it. They just took 5. The idea behind that was, though, when they take action on the 5, one of those 5 will tell who has done it. So that was their plan, but they never said anything. It didn't come out. So all of these 100 kids then started surrounding the office room, and it became a big, huge problem there. And then the management said, one of you, of the 100, can come in and have that discussion with us. Just one of you. You can decide who it is. Again, that's divide and rule. For me, that was divide and rule. And before I know, somebody pushes me in, and I am in front of the managers. Now the reason why I said the story is because when I look back, that was the first time it happened where I got pushed from behind and I was in front of those people. But it kept repeating in my life. Situations were slightly different but similar sort. So I get pushed, I am in the front, I am then talking to these authorities. And it kept happening again and again. So when I fill that survey form now, and people ask me, what are your strengths? I'm able to fill in and see the strength in me. I call it SCUP. Right? It's basically my own acronym that I've developed, which is called Speaking Correctly Under Pressure. So that's what came out of that. So that's why I think filling one of those surveys is good. It makes you think. It brings the strength in you out. And you will be able to articulate that to others, just like I did. Now, if you are asked to draw a picture of yourself, some of you might be good in drawing, some of you might not, but nevertheless, give it a try. If you are asked to draw a picture of yourself, what do you do? I need interaction, I need energy, otherwise, we all have to come after lunch, slowly goes on. This is the biggest problem when doing these talks just after lunch, and especially if you're all day we give up. So come on, what do you do? If somebody asks you to draw a picture of yourself, what do you do? Start with face. Yeah. So the way I think about it is, I've been asked to draw a picture of myself, right? I need to look the best in that picture because I'm presenting myself there. So I'm going to look at the mirror from angles. Yeah, which one is good? I then start drawing. That's one. You might actually look at a photo of yours, the best photo that you've ever had, and then try to copy that. And then for boys, sometimes you go, see whether you can. So this is basically what I call transforming yourself. You all in your mind know what transformation you need really. It's about going intentionally behind it and then trying to achieve what you want. So I transitioned from, I used to work for a company called HP. Most of my time in the UK I spent in a firm called KPMG. So 12 years that I spent. I transitioned into Microsoft. And then suddenly I realized the world was completely different. The measures were different, the expectations were different, and it felt like each individual had to run a company of your own within that organization. And that was really new to me. I was a happy-go-lucky person, got everything delivered to me, never had to work hard, reach there, and then one fine morning, I was started doing work. So I joined Microsoft at the age of 36, and by industry standards, to be honest, your good years are gone by. I'm not discouraging anyone here, but all I'm saying is, better late than never. I tried, and I was able to transform myself in certain ways to go through the next few weeks. So there are some simple methodologies that I adopted to equip myself to tell a better story of myself. And it does not mean that I compromise on my non-negotiables. Everybody has those. There are certain things that you stand for, and you never compromise. So this is not intentional. This is not part of my script, but I'll tell you a story. So when I was at KPMG, there was this incident where we had a deliverable, and I had to move the dates for some reason. And the delivery manager, who was part-time at the time, didn't like it. So she worked only 3 days a week, and when she came on a Monday, she just started shouting at me. And I thought to myself, I had sent an email, everybody was aware, what's the reason for all this? I paused for a few minutes, let the scene settle down, and when I asked her, is everything okay at home? So that is how you don't compromise your own emotions. I'm getting because she told me, this session is not about teaching how to become a leader. This is about how to be intentional about things that you want to achieve in life. And being able to articulate it with the specifics of what the market or the industry is looking for. And that's what transforms you into a leader. So without further ado, that was the introduction. So without further ado, I'm going to start with my first topic. And the one that I've chosen is inclusivity, or diversity and inclusion as it is called in big organizations these days. And it's a key attribute for anyone who wants to be successful in enterprise these days. And this one, I chose this one because I struggled a lot to understand what this really means. How to meet that commitment. So, beyond the he's a nice person, you must produce numbers to show how you are helping the organization achieve its targets. Right? So there is, I'm a nice person, I help everyone with disability, it's a nice thing to hear, but that's not going to go very well when you go out to the market and tell everyone from you're making an impact with this. A few years ago, I think it was around the time when I joined Microsoft, I was giving a presentation, and it was an all-day 8-hour presentation. And a slide like this came up, not this one, but like this. There was a chart, which was a pie chart with different colors and stuff. It came up on the screen. And that subject, I was really into it, passionate about it. So my talk was really that energy. And one person pushed their hand up. and says, I'm colorblind. How do you have complained? You have to think on your feet, right? And I had never come across a colorblind person before. I didn't know what colorblind means. And it took me about 4 years to land on this, to understand how kind of, so you can see when I was talking the story earlier, my emotions took me over. I couldn't really generate the impact. And that's what happened. Culturally, I think most of us go through that phase. And, definition for a nice person to me, the way I was brought up, is one that never says no to anything. Doesn't matter what it is, you just say yes, and then you think about what to do. And that's the definition for a nice person. And that does not translate very well into organizational targets when you have got them to do it. So you have to think better and articulate it better when you want to involve yourself in the D&I targets. And all this without actually changing yourself once. You don't want to be doing things that you really don't stand for. Okay? So I talked a lot about numbers when we were talking inclusivity. Numbers that enterprises look for. To be honest, behind all this D&I strategy and targets and all that, there is a business. So you look at some, I'm not going to go through all these numbers, right? Why do organizations give importance to diversity and inclusion? So think of iPhone. If iPhone had been developed without diversity and inclusion in mind, there are 1 billion people in this world with some sort of disability. And if iPhone was not developed with them in mind, they probably lose that 1 billion as customers. Because if I can't use the phone, I won't buy it. So that's the reason why organizations. That's the reason why organizations go behind this. So with that understanding, from being the nice person to the numbers that I have to hit and the reasons behind why I have to hit these numbers, which is for the organization that I work for, I try to put this in action. So around last June, July time, I was asked to interview a few people for a couple of roles in my organization. And there was a target that we had to meet. So obviously Microsoft is big in gender gap. So we had to recruit 2 ladies or 2 women into the team to manage the numbers. And that target I was given. So obviously, that then meant that a lot of the CVs that came through was from women. So we recruited 2 girls of those, and I was fortunate to be mentor for a couple of them. And 2 weeks in, I just realized they were technically really brilliant, and I was nowhere near them. So I had a chat with my manager and said, we have recruited 2 girls on the basis of whatever reasons behind it is. But really speaking, they would have walked through that door any day without that consideration, even with a normal interview. So we have done some injustice to them. But then, these things happen. You have to get on with it. So between me and my manager, we decided the best way to get out of that feeling now is to give them an opportunity to grow. So we thought, let's empower them and let them, do something about it. Okay? So while doing the interviews, I had actually noticed a pattern. Most of the CVs that came through, it was from women who were trying to come back to work. Which is, if you think about it, if a woman goes on maternity and has 2 kids and then come back, you're looking at an average of 5 to 6 years before they come back to work. That then means that in a technology world, that's a long time. Technology would have moved on, and they might not be current with the existing technologies that are out there. Health department, I don't know, might be different, but it's definitely in a tech world that is a problem. So to cut the long story short, we got the girls to develop a program which is now running. They are mentoring 6 women who's trying to come back to work. That's by giving them help in preparing for interviews, doing their exams, doing their, the technology they can choose from what they want to do for the rest of their life. And that program is running well, and that's under the Skillers umbrella, which is within a big program in Microsoft. The reason why I said that is because that is my transformation now. So from a person who thought I am a nice person to having done something I feel is meaningful, then that's a transformation that I made to myself. So with that, I was able to guide others as well. So that's how you transform yourself into becoming a leader. You do it for a purpose that is close to you, but eventually the end goal is to help the community, to help the world out there, and thereby bring the leader out in you. So that's me being myself, knowing myself, and transforming myself. So that's me having done justice to the topic. The next 10 minutes, we are going to look at, just give me a second, I think for some reason. Yeah, so the next 10 minutes, we are going to look at some of the methodologies and other steps that I take to go through these things to help others being successful. Now, like I said in the beginning, I know I might be preaching to the converted already, But one of the things that's very close to me is growth mindset. So when I keep going back to Microsoft because that's when the big transition happened in me, I feel personally. So when I joined Microsoft, one of the things that I was asked to do, are you all with me? Or are you just lost? Yeah. So when I joined Microsoft, one of the things that I had to write at the end of the year in a conversation with my manager was to narrate how I have shown a growth mindset. So again, like in the beginning, how many of you have a growth mindset? I'm going to ask one of you to come in and describe it, okay? See, that's what this is all about. That's what you need to focus on. This leadership is in everyone. Leadership is definitely in everyone. Believe me, it is. It is just about you helping yourself to bring it out. And nobody else can, because nobody else knows you well. Probably for your mother, but nobody else knows you better than yourself. So when my manager asked me to narrate that, you go about the learnings that you have done all through the year, the certifications. So people who follow me on LinkedIn, I had a year of certifications after certifications. I went with that to my manager, and then you have that conversation. You know what the next thing your manager asks? So, who has benefited from it? What's the impact that you have brought by doing a lot of certifications? And you need to be able to articulate that. By doing that, you are able to contribute to your organization's numbers. Unless you do that, nobody is going to have time to listen to you. And that's why your focus should be. So all these attributes that we are talking about is there in all of you. It's just about spending the time answering the questionnaire, being able to put that into something like this, and then presenting it to people. Now, to the growth mindset story, sorry, I'm going to use your name. So when I joined Microsoft, the growth mindset came in as a topic, and I didn't have a clue. How do I say I have a growth mindset? How do I articulate it? And I picked Annie from school. She was in primary. And for some reason, year 6 and 7 at the time, they were having conversations about growth mindset at school. And I said, I'm struggling to articulate it. And she goes, so you worked at KPMG and HP for 12 years, right? You were very comfortable there. People respected you there. You had a wonderful job. You were enjoying what you were doing. Why did you go to Microsoft? I said, I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to explore more. I wanted to know a world that I had not seen. That's growth mindset is what she said. There you go. Now, if you look at the picture, we all live in ports, right? So there is a port that we belong to today. And there is a port that we want to get to tomorrow. And it involves a jump. So the first fish that jumped from one port to the other, what would it have had to do? We would have had to measure the thrust, the resistance of the water, the gravitational pull that pulls it down, the angle at which it has to go to get to the next port, right? And it also depends on the weight of the fish. All fishes know the same. Once the first fish has jumped it with all these calculations, what happens next? They pass it on to the rest of the who has got the same ambitions in life. You become a leader. Right? So, in reality, you might not be able to do everything that your team members or the people who you manage do, because different people have different skills. But with the methodologies, what you should be able to do is to guide them through their challenges to get where they want to in terms of their goals. That's when you become a leader. Sorry. Okay, anyway, so that's about growth mindset. So when talking about growth mindset, the next topic that I've chosen to discuss is succeed on purpose. When do you feel successful yourself? When do you feel successful yourself?
When you achieve something.
So the answer was when you achieve something, right? Okay. Shall I give you my version of it? You feel successful when you have been intentional about something and you go behind it and achieve it. Okay? That's when you are successful. With that, what happens is everyone who has got that intention, you will be able to talk them through together. So think of a child who goes to swimming, right? And what happens the first day when you take them to swimming? What happens the first day when you take them to swimming? They stand on the banks and start enjoying seeing all the water. Everything is hunky-dory until you take them to that fear zone, which is asking them to get into water. So once you ask them to get into water, we all have been through that, haven't we? So once they then get used to that, they kind of, put their feet in water and slowly get in there. They go through the learn zone. And once they have started learning, they go through the front crawl, the back stroke, eventually get to, somersault and dives and everything else. So that's what happens in life. You go through the comfort zone, you go through the fear zone, then you go through the learn zone, and then you go through the growth zone. So make sure that you don't stay still where you are. So if you are actually measuring your success at the same scale for the last 3 years, you've done something wrong. You have to keep moving through those zones, okay? So that's an attribute that you need to develop as a leader. Now, the crux of it is what you hear won't get you there. So if you came second today, to get to first, if you keep repeating what you're doing today, you're not going to get to first. So that's a good book if you wanted to read on these things as well. Now, the next one I want to talk about is a methodology. I mean, again, for anyone who's worked in the industry for some time would have seen this. It's called SMART methodology. Has anyone used this in their life in any shape or form? Yeah. I know people have done this in the room. So I'm going to kind of use some names in the room, or maybe not. A phone conversation that usually happens within our households. So Jesty. Doesn't matter. So Jesty calls Shiji and says, hello, Sugano. Then Jesty goes, here it is raining heavily. Shiji goes, here is raining cats and dogs. Actually, where is it raining more? Is it Shiji's place or Jesty's place? You have no idea. That's where measure becomes very important. Otherwise, yours is just one of your thoughts rather than fact. Out of curiosity, how many of you know how to measure rain? How do you measure rain? What's the unit for measuring rain? Millimeters, centimeters, whatever. So it used to fascinate me as a kid. That's why I brought that example. When you read newspaper, it used to come Kochi 3 centimeter, Kottayam 2 centimeter, and the newsreader Kochi 3 centimeter, Kottayam 2 centimeter, Kollam 1 centimeter, Trivandrum. It used to be, and I thought, what is this 1 centimeter, 2 centimeter rain? It was raining heavily here. So I went and asked my mom how it is. So she took me to a place where they had this measuring this cylinder, which is basically a vessel with a certain diameter, and then people who know weathers would know that. So that's why measure is very important. The point I'm trying to make is, when you are a leader, be it an individual contributor or leader of a team, the key is to make sure you have clear goals, which are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. So before you embark on anything or ask anyone to do it, do that check. Be honest to yourself. Can we really achieve this? Again, like I said, we do these things in life anyway. It is just about being able to apply it in everything that we do and get others to follow that path. So everyone here, or most of you here, either are going through the process of buying a house or have bought a house. You have gone on holidays. All these things need planning and execution, right? You have gone and created a budget for these things. You have looked at your affordability, the realistic approach to it. Time bound in the next 6 months, I have to go to Morocco. Is that where I'm from? So you all apply this methodology anyway in life. It's all about taking this into everything that you do and making it part of your life. Now the next one I want to talk about is something that, I think a lot of us neglect, or at least personally I felt I neglected it for a while. How many of you in this room is under 20? Put your hands up. I said, it's not a shame. How many of you know what your electricity and gas bill was last month of this under 20? That's a question for under 20. You know where I'm going with this. So if you were asked to measure how to increase the efficiency of the gas and electricity usage in your house, what would be your measure? So this question for now is for the under 20s. So what would be the measure if you were asked to increase? So your specific goal is to increase the efficiency of gas and electricity usage at your home. What's your measure? Please give an answer. It doesn't matter. I will continue saying what I have to say anyway. So all you're doing is stopping me. What's the measure? Okay. The other 20s are taking a while to think. How about the others? What's the measure?
How much money you pay?
Sorry? Okay. That's what I used to do, but I approach it slightly different now. One of the key things in being successful is getting your measures right. Okay? If you go with the bill, so this is an exercise that I'm going to give the under 20s. Go and find out. Go home today. Find out what the electricity and gas bill was for from last November 2022 to end of March 2022. Look at the gas and electricity usage at home. And what you have to do is to come back with a plan for next year. How you're going to increase the efficiency. The reason why I put this picture on it is one of the ways, there was an article in BBC when in October the prices went up by 80%, didn't it? So there was an article that came in BBC to advise people on how to improve the efficiency to bring the bills down. And one of the things was actually to keep the temperature at 18 degrees and put on woolen clothes. It definitely was. Now, when you're talking about increasing the efficiency, if you're already running at 18%, 18 degrees, what do? So that's where it has to be a realistic thing. You can't really lower than that because your windows will start molding. So be realistic. I want all the under 20s to go home and do that. Come up with a plan, but we haven't answered the question of what is the measure. So the measure would be the units of consumption rather than the cost, right? The challenge with the cost is that might change next October, so you won't be able to realistically represent the goals and the measures. So the time bound, realistic, achievable, measurable, specific goal is to go home and look at how to be more efficient to bring your gas and electricity bill down. Now for the grown-ups here, this is a really important. When I say grown-ups, I'm going to probably step into hot water here and ask you to do a reality check on what happened to our Go Green project. If you were asked to produce a success story today, what would it look like? What were your specific goals? What were your measurables? What were your achievables? Was it really realistic and time-bound? There you go. You with me? Yeah? Come and talk to me after, if you haven't read my mind. Now, we spoke a lot about measures. We spoke a lot about, electricity bills, gas bills, and all that. All that really is data, isn't it? So you rely on data for doing anything, to be honest. So, I think it was the first, when Rishi Sunak first became the Prime Minister, I watched a video which was taken in 2014 when he first became the MP. And when he first became the MP, the question was asked as to, obviously we all know who his father-in-law is and all the story behind that. So he was asked about the father-in-law, and he said, my father-in-law is at home now, so we are having breakfast together and all that kind of stuff. The interview was between that. And the question was, what advice does he give you? And he said, he just doesn't give any advice, he just asks about the general stuff. We just have normal conversations between a father-in-law and a son-in-law. Then the next question that the interviewer asked was, you believe in God. Do you think God will give you everything that you need? What does your father-in-law say? That was just out of blue. The question came out of the interviewer. He was quick on the response, What he said was, my father-in-law will tell you, God will give you everything. He will give you everything that you ask for. But you will have to bring data to the table. When you have conversations with him. Have you done what you are supposed to do? Now, the reality is we go through data a lot in life. Every day there is a lot of data that comes our way. That's what data looks like to us. There is a lot of data everywhere, and especially with the usage of internet these days, data is everywhere. And when you sort that, it looks a bit better, right? So you get a feel of how many blacks, how many blues, how many yellows are there. And then once you've arranged it, it gives you a feel of how much to an extent. But if you present it visually, it will appeal to others as well. And they would know, if I am in need of red blocks, should I come to this person or not? We, to an extent, at least personally I feel, we get up to this rate. Everybody gets up to this rate. The next two with data is how you explain it with a story. Okay? So there is a difference in saying that I've got 20 red blocks, 30 blue blocks, 15 black blocks. To you can build a house with the blocks that I have got, and then the question will come from the person listening, how many black blocks do you have? That makes the story better. And in reality, although this brings people home, attracts towards you, the real benefit is if you can actually make tangible outcomes of that conversation. So there is actionable outcomes that comes out of that discussion, which means that they will accept you as a leader. That's what everybody wants at the end of the day. Now, like we said, we all go through data in daily life. It's living here. This is on the back of a conversation that I had with Robin. So Robin's office is actually moving from Parker Hansen is moving from. It's easy to explain where that office is. Right opposite McDonald's. When there is no food and church, I see a lot of cars going there. So everybody knows where McDonald's is. So I was talking to Robin and he said his office is moving to Breakspear Park, which is only a mile off from there. And on a normal day, Sunday, if you go now, by all means try. It takes you 1 minute. 8:30 to 9, it takes you 40 minutes on a working day. So So when Robin tries to get to work, he looks at that data, plans his day accordingly, and does the necessary adjustments. I haven't told this to Robin, but I thought about this a bit more, and I thought, I have now gathered the data, I have arranged it, I have presented it visually, right? Now the next step is bringing it home and making it tangible. You can take this home too. So if your office is in Breakspear and you have identified a number of people who are coming to that office on a regular basis, you could create a community. You then advise them about a few parkings that you have in and around before the place where the traffic starts. And people start parking on the side roads and either walk or bike to the office, which takes less than 20 minutes. So we could actually run a campaign called Beat the Traffic and Be Healthy. Robin becomes a leader. There is tangible outcome for people. You have used the data, there is a reason why you're going about it, and there is an outcome that people will benefit from. So that becomes a very specific goal, which is measurable, the outcomes are achievable and are realistic as well. So that's how you use data. And same thing applies to your personal work, personal life and work as well. The point I'm trying to get to is, when you are intentional about something you want to do, it brings success, and more importantly, you will be able to lead and guide others to succeed, which will make you a leader. The next topic that I want to touch on is brand. Does anyone know what this is? Which brand this is? There you go. So people are very well aware of the brand, right? So when you are actually looking to advertise yourself and be the leader that you want to be, what you really need is something like this. A brand that people know you for. So we have followed a lot of methodologies. You've got a specific goal and you've reached somewhere that others will want to follow you as well. So essentially what you've done is created a personal brand for yourself. One of the questions that I had in the questionnaire was, what do you want to be known for? And that's your personal brand. Now, I know I'm probably in the wrong place to bring this up on the slide, but I'm going to do this, bear with me, okay? It's a completely different way of looking at the book that we all saw. So Genesis chapter 41, verse 46 to 57, with the exception of Hudson. Everyone knows what this is, yeah? Does anyone know what this is? It gives you a clue on the link that's there at the bottom. So this is about a dream that Pharaoh had. And I'm not going to, he had a few dreams, but I'm going to choose one just to explain it. The Pharaoh had a dream whereby there were 7 fat cows who came out of the river, and then after a while 7 lean ones came out and ate the fat ones. Right? He struggled to interpret the dream, is what the book says. And he asked his advisors, and no one had a clue. But they said they know a guy called Joseph in the prison. I think he was working there. I don't know how much. And they said that he had explained some of the prisoners' dreams to them. The first conversation that Pharaoh had with Joseph, Pharaoh knew this is the guy that I need, because Joseph had a brand. And he described Joseph as discerning and wise. That's the first impression that Pharaoh had about Joseph. So with that brand, Pharaoh asked him, how are you going to do? What are you going to do about the dream? And can you explain it? So his explanation for the dream, obviously we all know, was the fact that there will be 7 years of good harvest and then followed by 7 years of famine. And the job that Pharaoh wanted to entrust on Joseph was to lead Egypt through famine. Right? So the brand of capability of Joseph brought him to Pharaoh because people knew about him, his skills. But when Pharaoh asked, how are you going to go about it? Joseph didn't have to think twice because he was already prepared with specific measurable outcomes in his head. He said, fifth of the harvest every year for the next 7 years, we will keep as a buffer, which should take us through the next 7 years of famine. Very specific, very realistic, very time bound. And what happens? Joseph then becomes the leader of Egypt. So, beyond the explanation of the dream that Joseph was giving, Pharaoh realized he's a very smart methodology person. And the link there on the slide actually gives you a very wonderful explanation of how these things translate into the modern enterprise world. And they use actually this example as well, which is why I picked this, which can resonate well with us. So, my point is, your brand advertises the leader that is you. So make sure you work on your personal brand. Now, having said all this, presenting always is important. That doesn't know. That's not secondary. It is very important that how you present yourself. But once you have gone through these methodologies that we discussed intentionally, including answering the questionnaire that I had published, you will be thorough with the outcomes that you want, the goals that you have set for yourself, the learnings that you want, your ambitions, and your destiny. What do you think is the picture? Anyone wants to give a go? That's a fair guess. What do you think is the picture? Obviously, I have edited it to make it look a bit jumbled, but it's kanji, payaru, chammandi, and papadam. But presented it in a slightly different way. Okay, so presentation is very important. Now, what if you present this on a table and somebody comes and the beans on it is off? What happens? I mean, you have damaged your brand. So once you have created a brand for yourself, make sure that you live through the brand. Never give it away. Because you will need to work hard to get to that brand. So while presenting is important, the substance is even more important. And let me tell you, when these two things come together, the substance in you plus the capability of yourself to present your substance to others, that's a beautiful world to be in. Take my word for it. Well, presenting is another topic in itself that we will keep it for another day. But not today. Now, are you ready for what? To be a leader. The big question is, how equipped are you now to feed the leader in you? That's the biggest question. So I want everyone today to go away and work out, how do I understand myself? How do I understand the leader in me, which I can then use to grow in my coming years? So that's Matthew chapter 25, 1 to 13. Can anyone tell me what that is? So I don't know how long this has been. I don't know. For me, from here, it doesn't look like I've taken long, but it looks like I have taken a long time. But here is a clue. If anyone wants to give another guess. This is a copy and paste from internet, so whether there is a spelling mistake or stuff, forgive me. So this is a story of 10 virgins. Okay? Now, for all the beliefs that we have, my interpretation of the story is that among the ones who had the oil reserve, there was one who had worked out, using our methodologies obviously, how much oil would they need should there be a delay. One of them had worked it out. And that leader enabled the others to see the bride. Let you all be leaders that help others see the bridegroom, I hope. And now, before I conclude, do you know why I was asked to give this talk? No, from Matthew. some pressure on me. Because I think it said accomplished leader, father of two, active committee member. I don't even know what that means. You know, that's all far from what I am. It is none of that. It is, as I now stand here knowing myself, I know it is the love and affection you have shown towards me over the years. Long may it continue. I hope each one of you got something out of it. And now here is a fun fact. Now I'm going to be brave and say this, okay? My salary increased 5 times in the last 20 years. And 80% of that increase happening in the last 6 years. Since I started following this methodology. Take it or leave it. And I have helped others go through that path as well. On that note, thank you for the opportunity.